like terms are terms that have the same variable and exponent. We're going to talk about the exponent in our later examples. They have the same variable and exponent. Again, you should still have a crease in your paper, so we're going to put examples on the left and practice problems on the right. So, my first example, 10x minus 4x. I look at these two terms. They have the same variable. They both have the variable x, and they have the same exponent. Right? In this case, it's just there's not an exponent written. It's to the power of 1. It's an imaginary exponent, but there's no. It's not squared or it's not cubed. There's no 2 or 3 here. So these are like terms. I can combine them. The way that I combine them is I do the math. Right? This is 10x and this is minus 4x. I do 10 minus 4, which is 6, and it's 6x. Here's your term. Go ahead and try negative 7n plus 5n. Pause and try it. And what you should have gotten is negative 7 plus 5 is negative 2, negative 2n. Let's try another example. 1 minus 3n plus 2. In this case, I have 3 terms, 1 term, 2 terms, 3 terms, but they're not all like terms. This term, I'm going to underline it, is a 1. It doesn't have any variable. This term, negative 3n, I'm going to double underline it because it's not a like term with the 1 because there's a variable, there's an n. This term, the 2, doesn't have a variable. It's like the first term, the 1. So I'm going to single underline it. So I notice that I have this negative 3n, which is double underlined. It's not like terms with anything else. So that one is just by itself. These two are like terms. There's a 1 and a 2. I'm just going to combine them. I'm going to add them together. This is a positive 1 and a positive 2, which add to become positive 3. Here's one for you to try. 2n minus 5 plus 2. Pause and try it. You should have realized that 2n had a variable, negative 5 didn't, and 2 also didn't. So the 2n stays by itself, and then I need to combine the negative 5 plus 2. So that's negative 3. Next example. Negative 2r plus 5r plus 7. In this case, let's start underlining. I have a negative 2r that has an r with it. This one also has an r, so I'm going to also single underline that one. And the 7 doesn't have an r. That one's not a like term, so I'm going to double underline it. My 2 with my single underline, I'm going to combine. Negative 2 plus 5 is 3. And then that 7 just comes down. There's nothing that's like terms with that. Here's another problem for you to try. Pause and try. And in this one, you should have realized 3m has an m, negative 14 doesn't, and then negative m is like terms with that 3m. And you can even pretend there's a 1 right here. Whenever there's no coefficient, whenever there's no number next to the variable, you can pretend it's a 1. So this is 3m minus 1m, which is 2m. And then that negative 14 doesn't get combined with anything. Let's try one more example. In this one, let's add a twist here. We have 3n squared plus 4n terms. I'm going to underline this one, 3n squared, and then I look at the next one, plus 4n. I realize that's not a like term because even though they're the same variable, n, it's not the same exponent. This one is n squared, this one does not have an exponent, so I'm going to double underline this one. And then in the next term, I realize it doesn't even have a variable at all. This is not like terms with either of these, it's different than both. So I'm going to triple underline. The final term is 5n squared. That has the same variable and exponent as my first term, so I'm going to single underline it. So I'm going to combine my like terms. 3n squared and 5n squared are like terms. 3 plus 5 is 8n squared. And then my other two terms don't have any like terms. There's nothing to combine them with, so I just bring them down. And go ahead and try this one. Pause and try it. In this case, hopefully you realize this one has an x squared. This one doesn't have a squared, so it's not like terms with that first term. It's like terms with this last one. Those are both x's. And then that -7, that one's all by itself. There's no x with that one. So this ends as 2x squared. I'm going to combine 4x and 2x. That's 6x minus 7. You have questions about combining like terms? Pause and raise your hand now. The last thing we're going to do is we're going to put it together. We learned about the distributive property and we learned about combining like terms. Now we're going to try to do both in one problem. I'm going to try to simplify this expression. And I'm going to have to both distribute and combine like terms. Pause and see if you can figure it out before I do it. Let's take a look together. The first thing I need to do is distribute. I notice that there's parentheses with terms inside and a number on the outside. So I'm going to use the distributive property. 7 times 2 is 14. 7 times 3x is 21x. So that's this, the distributive property. And then I'm also just going to bring down this plus 8. And now I have 3 terms. 2 of them are like terms, so I can combine them. 14 and 8 are like terms, and 21x is not. So 14 plus 8 is 22. And then that 21x just gets brought down. And that's my answer. Let's try another one. Let's try 6m plus 14 plus 3 parentheses 3m plus 7. First, look for the place where you can use the distributive property. I see it here. I'm going to bring down everything else. I have 6m plus 14. And now, let's do this. 3 times 3 is 9m, and it's a positive 9m. And 3 times 7 is 21. Now let's go ahead and combine like terms. This 6n and this 9n are like terms, and the 14 and the 21 are like terms. So, let's start with the m's. 6m plus 9m is 15m, and 14 plus 21 is 35. We're going to try one last problem. Let's look for opportunities first to use the distributive property. I actually see 2. There's one here, and there's one here. We're just going to do one at a time. So, We're going to start with this first set right here. 4 times 2m is 8m, and 4 times 6 is 24. Now let's come over here. 3 times 3 is 9, and it's a positive 9. And 3 times 5m is 15m. Now we can combine like terms. I have an 8m, and I also have a 15m, and I have a positive 24, and I have a positive 9. So 8m plus 15m is 23m, and 24 plus 9 is 33. And I'm done.